Is the UK in a colonial curse? Back in the days of imperialism, the United Kingdom had the largest empire in the world, ruling over 25% of the world's land. It could get all precious resources like diamonds, gold, silver, bronze, cotton, tea, and textiles from its colonies. Even its companies, like East India Company, were handling entire countries like India, stealing wealth of approximately $45 trillion. London was the economic hub of the world. But these were the old days. Today, the United Kingdom is in decline like never before.
The report reveals that UK productivity growth has flatlined since the COVID.
If it's compared with the 50 states of the United States, it would stand at the second spot in poverty, just after Mississippi. So, what has gone wrong with the United Kingdom's economy, and is it really becoming a third world economy, much like the colonies it ruled were back in the day?
The United Kingdom is one of the largest economies in the world today.
The story of Britain's economic decline started in 2008 when the global financial crisis hit hard. Unlike many European countries, the UK was especially vulnerable due to its heavy reliance on the financial sector, which made up a substantial part of its economy. And since the financial sector was heavily connected with the United States and the rest of the world, economic collapse took now time to reach the UK. In 2007, the financial services industry contributed about 9% of the UK's GDP and employed over 1.1 million people, according to the Financial Services Authority. However, the financial crisis exposed the sector's over-reliance on risky subprime mortgages. The collapse of major US institutions like Lehman Brothers sent shockwaves through global markets, and the UK was among the hardest hit. Several British banks, including Northern Rock, HBOS, and the Royal Bank of Scotland, faced severe liquidity crises. Northern Rock experienced the UK's first bank run in more than 150 years. Several British banks, including Northern Rock, HBOS, and the Royal Bank of Scotland, faced severe liquidity crises. Northern Rock experienced the UK's first bank run in more than 150 years, with depositors pulling out around £2 billion in just a few days in September 2007. Meanwhile, RBS, which had grown to become the world's largest bank by assets, was on the brink of collapse and required a government bailout of £45 billion, the largest in British history. To prevent the collapse of its financial system, the UK government intervened with a massive financial rescue plan. By 2009, it had poured roughly £141 billion into the banking sector to stabilize it. This included £37 billion to recapitalize institutions like RBS and Lloyds Banking Group, along with additional funds to absorb toxic assets. As a result, public sector net debt skyrocketed, going from 36.4% of GDP in 2007 to 69.1% by 2010. However, instead of bringing the economy back on track with high activity, the UK decided to do the opposite. Compared to the United States, which implemented aggressive fiscal stimulus measures to boost its recovery, the UK government chose an austerity scheme. In 2010, the newly elected Conservative government led by Prime Minister David Cameron rolled out a series of deep spending cuts aimed at reducing the budget deficit, which had reached about 10% of GDP. These austerity measures slashed public spending across key sectors, leading to stagnating incomes and reduced investments. The Institute for Fiscal Studies found that real median household income in the UK grew by only 0.7% per year from 2010 to 2020, compared to an average of 2.4% annually from 1997 to 2007. By 2024, the average British household had fallen 20% behind those in Norway and 16% behind American households in terms of income. The austerity cuts were most painfully felt in public services, particularly in the National Health Service. Years of underfunding left the NHS struggling to keep up with rising demand. By 2023, a staggering 7.7 million people, about 1 in 7 Britons, were on waiting lists for medical treatments, according to the British Medical Association, BMA. The ripple effect of austerity didn't stop there. The Law Society reported a backlog of 65,000 cases in Crown courts and 300,000 criminal cases pending in magistrates' courts by 2024. A survey by Ipsos Mori revealed that 80% of Britons believe public services have significantly deteriorated over the past 5 years. The long-term consequences of austerity have eroded trust in public institutions as citizens witness declining standards in healthcare, education, and justice. However, something interesting happened. Despite the broader economic decline, London remains an economic powerhouse. In 2022, the capital contributed £652 billion to the UK's GDP. If it were an independent state, London would rank as the 22nd largest economy globally, outpacing countries like Argentina and Sweden. However, the prosperity of London is not mirrored across the rest of the UK. Research from the Centre for Cities shows that London and the South East account for nearly 50% of the UK's total GDP, despite comprising only 34% of its population. This has led to what economists describe as a two-speed economy, where London thrives while the rest of the country lags behind. Regions outside London, such as the North East and West Midlands, suffer from some of the lowest productivity rates among G7 nations, with levels 25% below the national average. Furthermore, the UK's over-reliance on financial services has come at the expense of its industrial base, with manufacturing's contribution to GDP shrinking from 16% in 1990 to just 8% today. Over the last 2 decades, manufacturing output has plummeted by 30%, according to the Manufacturing Technologies Association. Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Africa's geopolitics, economy, and changing landscape. Let's continue now. As if this was not enough, the UK decided to leave the European Union, which many believe was a self-inflicted wound. When the 2016 Brexit referendum promised economic sovereignty, many believed it would usher in a new era of growth. In reality, it made matters worse. The Bank of England reported that in the years following the vote, foreign direct investment plummeted by 25% between 2016 and 2021. This sharp decline was driven by fears among international companies over losing access to the EU's single market, which previously accounted for nearly 43% of UK exports. London's financial sector, once a global leader, took one of the hardest hits. According to a study by Ernst & Young, over 440 financial firms relocated parts of their operations to EU cities like Frankfurt, Dublin, and Paris, shifting an estimated $1.4 trillion in assets out of the UK. This exodus didn't just drain high-paying jobs, but also dented London's reputation as Europe's financial hub. Beyond finance, the effects of Brexit rippled through the broader economy. Supply chains were disrupted, costs for businesses surged, and new trade barriers hampered exports. As the UK was trying to handle these problems, it was hit by another crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic, which sent the economy into a tailspin. The government responded by borrowing an additional £280 billion to fund emergency measures, according to the National Audit Office. This massive financial intervention supported furlough schemes, business grants, and social benefits, initially preventing widespread bankruptcies and job losses. However, these measures came with a heavy price tag that worsened the long-term fiscal outlook. In just 3 months, the UK's GDP dropped by 19.8%. Perhaps it was highly unfortunate for the UK that whenever it began to stand on its feet, a crisis would hit it. That happened in 2022, just as the UK began to find its footing after the pandemic. Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 sent shockwaves through global energy markets, further destabilizing an already fragile economy. With the UK heavily dependent on energy imports, electricity prices skyrocketed nearly tenfold. To cushion households from this energy shock, the government introduced financial support packages worth between £60 billion and £100 billion. While this intervention provided short-term relief, it added even more pressure to the national debt. By late 2022, inflation surged to 11.1%, the highest level in 4 decades, prompting the Bank of England to hike interest rates to 5.25% by the end of 2023. This rapid increase in rates caused mortgage payments to skyrocket, straining household budgets. At the same time, the cost of servicing the national debt increased, with annual payments nearly doubling from £40 billion to £100 billion. According to the Office for Budget Responsibility, debt servicing costs now exceed the country's spending on education. highlighting the unsustainable nature of current fiscal policies. To boost economic activity, the UK needed to boost production and manufacturing. However, there is a labor shortage. You see, the UK's workforce challenges go beyond the official unemployment rate, which currently sits at 4.4%. However, this figure hides a more significant issue, which is this: 9.25 million people are classified as economically inactive. According to the Office for National Statistics, this group includes students, early retirees, and those unable to work due to long-term health issues or caregiving responsibilities. In an attempt to address labor shortages, the UK government turned to increased immigration, particularly from South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa. The Home Office reported a record net migration of nearly 606,000 people in 2022. Yet this influx has sparked social tensions, leading to anti-immigration protests in over 20 towns by mid-2024. These protests reflect a growing sense of economic disenfranchisement among citizens who feel that immigrants are straining already overstretched public resources. Today, the UK's economy seems to be on life support. The national debt has grown to nearly 100% of GDP, a sharp rise from just 20% in 1990, as reported by the Office for National Statistics. In the 2023 fiscal year, the cost of servicing this debt exceeded £111 billion, making it the government's second-largest budget item after healthcare. The strain on public finances is immense, with taxes on households set to reach an 80-year high. According to the Institute for Fiscal Studies, taxes are projected to account for 37% of national income by the end of the decade. The burden of high taxes, with stagnant wages and soaring inflation, has led to a cost-of-living crisis for many Britons. Adding to these woes is the UK's overvalued currency, which has made British exports less competitive globally. The Office for National Statistics reports that in 2023 alone, the UK's trade deficit increased by £33 billion. The country's growing reliance on imports for essential goods has made it vulnerable to global supply chain disruptions, further eroding its economic stability. The UK now finds itself at a critical crossroads. Decades of political missteps, economic mismanagement, and external shocks have left the nation wobbling on the brink of economic collapse. Brexit, the pandemic, and geopolitical tensions have created a perfect storm that the country is struggling to manage. The coming years will be crucial in determining whether the UK can reverse its downward spiral or if it will continue its trajectory toward becoming a third-world economy in all but name. The question now is whether the UK can have the political will and leadership needed to steer itself away from economic disaster. The stakes are high, and the time for action is now. What do you think has gone wrong with the United Kingdom's economy? Do you feel the decline started when colonialism ended, or did Brexit play a role in the continuous economic fallout? In the comment section right below, share your thoughts on how the United Kingdom's economy can be revamped and brought back on track. Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If yes, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: African politics, economy, and increasing power. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.